What's up, guys? Back with part 2 of my Amandatory Volume 2 cover coloring process. I want to remind you guys that there's only a few days left of this Kickstarter campaign, Amandatory Volume 2. Like 5 days left, I think it is, for you guys to get your copy with sweet prizes, rewards, there's custom art available. There's alternate editions of the book. It's just a bunch of cool stuff to be had for anyone who gets in on it early during the Kickstarter campaign. And only a few days left to have it. But I'm continuing from part 1 of my color process video, and as you can see, I'm still adding in those highlights, working on this grayscale, which I do before I add color. Every time I make sure there's a fully rendered grayscale, and I think I explained this last time, but whatever, I'll explain it again. What I'm doing here is I'm laying down shadows, and I'm going to put the flat colors on a layer underneath this and set this layer to multiply, and that'll be the shadow layer. And then I'm gonna add more highlights on another layer on top of this, on either a screen or an overlay layer, depending on which looks better for the particular piece that I'm working on. I think I actually ended up using a screen layer for this one. Spoiler alert, I'm recording this after I've already done the piece. Obviously, because the Kickstarter is going on right now, I record these vocals after the fact because I can't talk and draw at the same time. Well, I kind of can at conventions, but I can't guarantee that everything that comes out of my mouth makes sense. This is much better for actually making sense. But yeah, just shading and blending. That's the name of the game right now. Adding, make sure I've got a good bit of contrast, getting those darks dark, and since this is going to be a multiply layer, as you can see right now, I'm fiddling with the layers. The darks have to be pretty dark. The lights are just going to be the saturated color because I've yet to go in and add the highlight layer. But you just saw me, sometimes what I'll do, instead of having a just straight up grayscale as my multiply layer, oftentimes I'll tint that to whatever, to fit whatever I'm coloring over. You can see the skin is kind of more of a warm, and I've got a cool shadow layer over the skin, and I'm separating those two because you don't want like just straight up gray shadow, right? It's just going to make it look kind of dirty. You want to give everything in the painting needs to actually have a color. And that's what's going on right now. Just fiddling with those colors because as it stands, the multiply layer is done. Like the shadows are done. Just messing with those highlights. Not highlights, but the tinting that all the shadow is going through, and I'm cleaning up those layer masks because I've masked off. How do I explain this? Masked off the warm shadows, and I've masked off the cool shadows to their own layers. And now I'm going in and adding those highlights that I was telling you about earlier. Those bright lights. I think the only thing that's actually white is that specular highlight on the nose, because that really always should get the brightest highlight. That's what I've been told anyway, by people who are much better at art than me. Giving a nice gloss to those eyeballs. Kind of blending in a few of those shadows. And basically, this part is, I was going to say it's the icing on the cake, but it's not really. The icing on the cake is actually the next step, where I add glowy effects and crap. That part is the icing on the cake. This part, highlights, is indeed a very necessary part. And this will prevent your work from looking, you know, dirty and too dark. Although a lot of times my work does look too dark. It's something I'm messing with. I mean, something I'm struggling with. Yeah, hang in there with me, guys. We're all growing. We're all learning. Okay, cut me some slack, jerks. But yeah, just smoothing out a few things. Highlights, shadows. And I can't actually offer anyone the PSD file of this because this is work for hire. This is for a you know, a professional project. But if you're interested in seeing some of my PSD files and how this stuff is broken down, feel free to go to my Patreon. Just pitch up a couple bucks and you'll get access to my PSD files, and you can even follow along with these videos, pick apart the layers, see what I actually did. Not that I'm hiding anything from you, but you know, it does help to actually have someone's Photoshop file with the layers intact, and you can click them on and off, you put them through the different layer modes, and you can actually see. You learn a lot that way. I've done it with quite a few artists myself. But again, going back in with those highlights, adding highlight to the shadows, which seems weird, I know, but a shadow is not just straight dark shadow. You know, there's what my art teacher used to call third contour highlights inside those shadows. And that's what those little blue things inside the shadows are, blue areas. They help to break up those dark masses of shadows. And also rim lighting, gotta have that rim lighting. Just, it helps to put the figure in the foreground for sure, to draw the viewer's attention to where it needs to go. Gotta put that rim lighting in. And there we go, those fire highlights. You knew they were coming. I mean, it's fire. It can't just be straight up orange. And definitely I'm not painting over all of the lines. I'm painting over some of the lines to give it a more painterly look, but definitely respecting the lines that Amanda put down. If you are a colorist, I would definitely recommend that you respect the people that you're working with and don't just scribble all over what they've laid down. You highlight where necessary, blend some things where it's necessary. But Amanda's a great penciler, a great artist in her own right, and I definitely respect her work, and I just want to embellish where I can, you know. And this is the icing on the cake right here. This glowy crap. It's cool. I mean, it's not necessary per se, but it definitely adds. I mean, it adds a few touches. Come on, you gotta admit it adds, right? I think this is where Ross Tran says it's color dodge time, right? I'm not color dodging, this is a screen layer for me, but I could color dodge. It's a much harsher effect. I prefer the screen layer to the color dodge. Sometimes I use color dodge. Just depends on, it depends on what looks best for an individual piece. I find that it varies. What you actually need to use varies from piece to piece. Yep, add them highlights. You gotta have them. That's what makes it look cool. And again, these are all on a separate layer, on a screen layer on top of the shadows, on top of the lines, and all the glowy crap is on a layer on top of that. But really, I try to keep my layers to a minimum. But like we're talking like 5 or 6, and then the signature, that's the most important part. I mean, come on, that's the really important part. But thanks for watching. Appreciate your time, and don't forget to hit up that Kickstarter, and also hit up GavinMichelliArt.com. Thanks, guys.